So Marianne has asked me to put together the numbers, electricity costs, and the mileage and the kilowatt hours for um, Joules and Ruby. I'm starting off here with the yearly averages for our power bill. We use Duke Energy Progress time of use, and it goes all the way back to 2016. Now, 2016 is sort of our baseline. We had no electric vehicles at all, so everything in 2016 was just your typical, things around the house: air conditioning, heating, and various different things, but no electric vehicles. So back in 2016, obviously the bill was $162, but probably more important is our daily kilowatt average was 48. So we used on average 48 kilowatt hours per day. So as you can see in 17, it's showing that our average bill went up to 174, and our daily average kilowatts went up to 63. But that's the start of when owning an electric vehicle. We got Ruby in June of 17. So we also switched to time of use in late like September of 17. So 17 is really not a good baseline for Ruby, but 18 is. So now all of a sudden we've got Marianne's driving the boys to and from school in 2018 for the whole year, and our average daily kilowatt hours is 81. So knowing that it's somewhere around 48 to 50 kilowatt hours for the household, then that the difference between the 81 and the 48, or approximately, just say 30, 31, 32 kilowatt hours per day is the energy that the electric car added to our bill, going to and from Raleigh to take the boys to school. And of course, now our bill has gone up from $162 baseline, let's call it, up to $224. And as you can see, it's very similar even in 19. Maybe it fell back a little bit to 76, our average daily kilowatt hours and such. But anyway, it's pretty good. Well, comes along the pandemic, of course, hit in the spring of 2020, and so we weren't driving the cars as much, and it shows up in the average daily kilowatt hours. We pretty much were shut in, and so 62 kilowatt hours per day. And then 2021, things start opening up, and we're bumping up to 68 kilowatts per day, and more or less that's what we've been using, just right around 70 kilowatt hours per day. But I'd like to point out the bill has gone up significantly. We started off down there, let's just say approximately $175 average bill without cars, and now with two cars, and of course the rate increases, and our power bill has gone up significantly. Just the rate is gone up, so it's about $100 a month. But realistically, thinking about it, being able to have two cars and the total fuel cost for the two cars is at most $100 a month. That's really not bad. That's maybe a tank and a half of most people. So I think that it's really saved us having the electric cars. And you can actually see the time of use savings for each average for per month has been in the $40 range, and that's because we're able to control the charging of the vehicles so that it only happens during the discount or off peak when it's inexpensive to charge. And I think it's now getting close to 8 cents a kilowatt hour. It started life at 6 cents a kilowatt hour, so it's gone up the 20% there in the goodness, 7+ years we've owned Ruby. Okay, now we're going to look at the individual mileage and kilowatt hours used for the cars, and we're going to start off here with Ruby for 2024. And you can see, I think Marianne's talked quite a bit about it when she went with the Tesla Phi, but you can see our month-to-month driving varies, and specifically, you can spot the months in which we take trips to Charlotte to take Johnny to or from school. And it's, March is 1,400 miles, probably because that was spring break and we took a trip down to Charlotte. And also September, and then of course October was he gets a fall break. So each of those months had high mileage, or what we would consider, we're not doing a tremendous amount of miles anymore because we're not going back and forth to Raleigh 2 times a day. But the kilowatt per the watts per mile for Ruby is right at 400. That's average for the entire year. And you can see particularly that December's low because we took the trip to pick up Johnny for Christmas. We took Joules because we had to ferry the bicycle down there. So I'm going to go now on to Joules, and it's similar. Again, a little bit more steady, but because we don't take trips to Charlotte regularly in Joules, we tend to take Ruby because of the lifetime supercharging. Joules is pretty consistent. The only month that's particularly high is December. And that's because we took 2 trips. We actually went to the glass station for Christmas, and we also went to Charlotte to pick up Johnny and drop off the bike. So it was a high mileage month.
Right, Ruby was being repaired, and that's why we took Joules instead of Ruby. Ruby was over at Caliber Collision.
That's right. Thank you, sweetheart. Cool.
You pull some year-end numbers together for Ruby and Joules, and I usually do the Tesla Phi part, and Dawn does the heavy-duty spreadsheet part. Anyway, I'm here in Tesla Phi, which is a third-party tool that collects data. I would say constantly, but every short intervals from the car, and uses that to build useful charts and graphs. And we've had it on Ruby almost since the day we purchased her. I think we missed just a few days, and this Joules was purchased, installed, operating within well, I think we missed the first drive, but everything after that. This is for a daily record. This is for Thursday, January the 2nd. And of course, I went to Guardian Angel today, and I was there for 2 hours and 28 minutes. And you can see it's not too far from my house to go through downtown and get over there. And this is what a daily record would look. And there's one of these for each day we've had Ruby. So what I really wanted to do though was talk about 2024 numbers, and I'm going to start over here on the left and pull up the drive summary. And on each of these, I'm going to take the time to put in 2024 January 1st up through 2024 12/31. So give me just a second on a few of these screens to type that in and let it redo the search. I have a helper here. I have a black cat keeping me company beside me. So the top destination, of course, home would be no surprise, and the fact that Guardian Angel Fuquay is number 2 would also not be a surprise. Guardian Angel Apex, Whole Foods, the chiropractor, South Park, the vet, I'm not sure how Taekwondo is still up in the list, but Taekwondo, and then down there is the boy's father's house and Walmart. So Walmart Fuquay. So that's no surprise. I think those are all pretty good. You can know where I hang out when I'm making my videos, and this confirms it. And Joules will be similar but a little different. Uh, the longest drives when you're seeing Salisbury, Culver's, that would be from home to Culver's. Culver's is Salisbury is a supercharger closer to the school. These are all trips to and from UNC Charlotte, where Johnny attends school, with the exception of the one to Tryon's Palace in New Bern, and that was vacation time. But it's not really a surprise that our longest trips of the year were back and forth to UNCC. There's some interesting lifetime drive statistics, and I don't know if these are new or I didn't see them in prior years, but apparently, it says our lowest recorded range was we had 3.5 miles left. And that was in 2019, leaving the solar farm headed to the Rocky Mount supercharger. And apparently, it's trying to tell me we left at 23% and got there with 1%. And obviously we were there for, it says we were there for 53 minutes. We were there for however long it told us we needed to be there in order for us to get back home. Okay. So interesting. Most battery used on a drive was 74%. Apparently we went from 100% to 26%. It was pretty cold out there that day. That looks like I don't know what we were doing that day, but it was 43 degrees that day, and my print is done on the 3D printer over here. 100%. I have snowflakes ready to come off. The little window, gets your attention, so your print's done. So that was kind of interesting. The longest time driving, obviously, this is an error, 6 hours and 39 minutes. I don't know what happened to cause it to tell us. It says we drove 45 miles, but yet 6 hours and 39 minutes. And that was back in 2021, and that has to be an error. And then the highest recorded speed totally makes sense. Ruby's highest recorded speed is 115 miles an hour, and that was on the track at NC Car. And I was, probably Don or I was driving on the straightaway because we both got up about that fast on the straightaway. So that was a fun day. Lowest recorded drive temperature of 14 degrees. That was back in 2018. And it says the highest recorded temperature is 127, also back a few years, 2019. It says, I'm thinking that was parking lot temperature, on the asphalt, really hot day, blah, blah, blah. So highest recorded elevation was on the Blue Ridge Parkway. This was from 2023. I'm sure this is at that stop where we always all take all those pictures that says this is the highest elevation in the Appalachian mountain range, and I think it is in the 6,000 range, so that makes sense. And then in 2022, so there's got to be quite a few that are at 0 feet. But we were, it says, somewhere along the Cape Fear River down there by Wilmington at the ocean, the oceanic, like you would expect. That's at the beach. That's no elevation there. So I suspect some of these little records were added. I don't remember seeing these in prior years, but it's, for fun, it's kind of fun, right? So let's see. Temperature efficiency. I'll say the same thing I always say about this, and give me just a second here to not try to chew gum and walk at the same time. Let me get up the numbers. I'm gonna have Kitty in trouble down there. I'm just messing with my Christmas tree. So, this chart, let's get our bearings here. The efficiency is the graph, okay? So you can see, let me zoom in on it a little bit. You can see here 98% efficiency and the number of miles is the bar chart. So, um, number of miles driven, and then um, the temperature. Okay, so basically, I drive a lot when it's not too hot or not too cold, and the efficiency is best when I've driven a decent amount and it's pretty warm. But um, when it gets really hot, 90, I guess really, the car doesn't dislike the heat. But down here where it's cooler, you can see even going 45, 40, 35, the efficiency. I'm not driving a lot here, so there's not a lot to compare it to, but also in number of miles, which is the bar. But also when the car's cold, the efficiency is not as good. And I just think that's just, what we would expect to see. Um, and the speed efficiency, again, I think this is fairly intuitive. I will put in the day or the month and January through December again, trying to remember to keep everything with the current with last year. Oh, I didn't want to compare. I just wanted to go search. Okay. So I think this is relatively intuitive. When you're going really fast in the car on the interstate over 70 mile an hour, the car's not particularly efficient. Okay. And when you're going pretty slow or up in the 95, 98% efficiency, it's good. Um, Down here in the 15 to 20 miles part, going up and down the driveway, sometime the kilowatt hours per mile will be really off. Or if I only drive here to the environmental park, that's not really a good range. Although it is for over drives over 10 miles. So maybe even drives to Guardian Angel don't count then. But it's about what you would expect when you're traveling at a lower ish to middle speed. You're going to have pretty good range. So here's at 35 to 40 mile an hour, and I've got 92% efficiency. But like I said, out here on the interstate, which has not been a lot of Ruby's driving, but has been a little bit, certainly in the 65 to 70 here, you would say we would be doing that a good bit of the way to and from UNCC. We were down to 84%. So this is why when people are low on range and trying to make it to the supercharger, they slow down how fast they're going to try to be more efficient and conserve energy. Just kind of intuitive, I think. So let's see what else was here. Odometer graph. This is going to be a lifetime chart. And I did look at these. I did walk through them one time before I started recording, and I had it hang up a few times. I think this is Teslafy and not our internet, but it's hard to say for sure. It's still thinking. It has to calculate these. It's doing them by the drive records on the fly. So I still think it's pretty fast to crank as much data as Ruby's got. But you can see from this is July of 17 till January of 20. The kid, that was the first 3 years of driving back and forth to downtown Raleigh pre-COVID. And the odometers, I was just racking up the miles. I'm up to 72,000 miles in I guess that's even not quite 3 years. I mean, I was really plugging in some miles there. But then, the COVID time frame hit, and you can see how it really slowed up the miles. And then once the COVID was over, we were back and forth to downtown a little bit with just Johnny still in school. The climb was pretty good pace again, and now we've tapered back off. We've tapered back off some, so it's still going up, but it's not going up very fast, especially in the last year. After Ruby, we hit 100,000 miles, and we got Joules, and Don was like, well, we're going to conserve miles on Ruby because Joules is in warranty. Let's use Joules. And there's some reasons. Obviously, I'm not driving as much as I was, or Don and I are driving together and we're taking Joules. But at any point, you can kind of see where we are, and um, we're just at over 132, 938 miles, 130, just over 132,000 in Ruby. I thought it was interesting to have added a tire pressure graph, but it only goes back to March of 22. And I just thought it was, I clicked on it and I thought, oh, I'm going to be able to see every flat tire I've ever had. And we know I've had a lot of flat tires, but here's the last one I had, 41723 left rear, down to basically went from 40 something down to nothing, down to zero. And so if you want to be sad, you could go look at all your flat tire history now in Teslafy and share all, and there's a one line for each tire is the way that is working out there. Let me shut off the Pogo chat here before it gets going. Okay. So charge summary. And I'm going to put in the right year again. I kind of wish it would default to a rolling year. I guess there's no way it could default to anything that wouldn't keep me from having to retype it while I do the year-end numbers, but maybe if I had, it would be slightly easier if I'd done it before the end of the year. I'm just making sure I typed it right. I did. So we didn't do a lot of AC charging, and that's what you would expect. And as a matter of fact, we did have this one time this year. This was the night we had, I think this is the night we had the accident. Let me check. Let me click on, see what day it says this was. 9/16, right? We had of this year. That was when I'm pretty sure that's the night we had the accident. We were stopped over at that Sheets on the other side of town, and the only reason why we were in that Sheets while we filled out the accident report. And the car for some reason we got home, and it took me about a week to realize that Ruby didn't know where she really was. And I think we just fixed that by rebooting the car, which we would have done sooner than later had we realized it. So just forget about this, because this is really all home. This charging stuff would just go under home. That's just kind of weird. But as you can see, we charged Ruby 248 times in 2024. I don't plug her in, or I should say Dawn doesn't plug her in every night, but we do plug her in, obviously, fairly often, frequently. I like my car to be ready to go at either 80 or 90%. And supercharging totals, these are a lot. The Thomas and the Culvers is back and forth to UNC Charlotte. Halifax is when we go up to the solar farm. Wallace was to and from the beach. This is the one near Whole Foods. A couple of times I swung in there. This was when we were on vacation. I think we went to Sanford just because it was new and we wanted to check it out. And I don't exactly remember the last three, but a lot of times we'll just, if there's a new one and we're in the area, we'll just stop and we'll just, we want to hit all the superchargers. I did run the battery report a minute ago, and there's nothing surprising here. It was about what it was the last year when I ran it. It has not significantly changed. Let me see if that's correct. Dawn did charge, I want to say it was Ruby. Whoops. Start date. Sorry. Having to type the date too many times. Yeah, when was the last time we charged to 100? I'm confused now whether or not it was if it was Ruby or Joules. I guess it was Joules, but Ruby's been up to 90% a lot. 100% charge would be better for the battery report. But basically what this is telling us is this looks a little different than what I saw when I thought I took a picture of a minute ago. It was like 256 miles as Ruby's 100% was what I saw somewhere. Yeah, 256 is what this is. Let me zoom in so you can see it too. So 256 here on the end. I don't know what the different. Oh yeah, and also it was saying there's three other vehicles in the Tesla Fly fleet that are Ruby's age and have a odometer near Ruby's odometer, and they all have the three vehicles, which is not a great data point, but the three vehicles all have a little more range than Ruby. But that could be a tenth of a mile, that could be a mile, that could be 10 miles. It's hard to say. So, I'm trying to think. I was in a different chart a minute ago. Let me go back to well, I was gonna say, I swear there was a chart I looked at a minute ago that was better than this one, and I don't know what the difference was, but there were two time periods where Ruby's battery showed more degradation than you would want to see, or the times in the report where maybe that's because I want to look. That's why I was not. I think the first time I looked at this, I didn't put in the date. I wanted, obviously that was lifetime. So let's get rid of that and redraw it. That's why I'm confused. Sorry about that. Um this is what I wanted to see. We all only care about lifetime, right? So it says my current range is 256 miles. It started out at 292, something like that. And here in 2000 and around 62,000 miles, somewhere in there, we took this drop. Um, and it went from 200 and here, let me zoom in again. It went from 293, is that what it was, 294 max range down to 266. And it just, that was not over, that was over like 15,000 miles. And it was like, well, what in the world happened there? And then it leveled off for a really long, for the next 20,000 miles or something. And it's level, lost a little bit here again, but then it went back up, and then it's been really pretty darned consistent. This is not much difference. So, um, yeah, as long as this didn't keep on happening. I remember when that happened, and that was like, whoa, just stop already. And then this was like, okay, everything is good. So anyway, 256, and it's not changed a lot in the last year. Basically, that's what we saw over the last year. It's been very consistent. It's not had really any additional degradation. So, calendar for the year, that's important. We want to look at this one, and I want to look at 2024. And I'm gonna zoom out actually here, make it harder to see for a minute. The thing that I thought was interesting is and I will zoom back in now. This is the miles per month, the number of drives. The months where Johnny comes home from UNCC, we have more miles and more drives. And the months where, the summer months, or the months where we weren't going back and forth to UNCC, because one drive down there is like 300 miles. So if we bring him home like in October, say, for the 4-day weekend for fall break, that's basically adds 600 miles there. So we were at 1,220 miles for that month. And we're taking, Ruby in that case, and not Joules, because of the free supercharging. But there were 927 drives in 2024, just under 9,800 miles. The watt hours per mile is 403, which is above Ruby's lifetime, and I don't know why it would have been quite so inefficient. Because lifetime, last I looked, was like 350 or 360, and it talks a little bit about number of supercharges, 36. At home charges, we said, was 240, 248, and what it cost. And Don will cover more of the charging cost, so I'm glossing over that. That's not my area. Obviously Ruby doesn't pay for supercharging, so this is saying we save $410 by um not having to pay for having free supercharging for this car, lifetime free supercharging. I will want to show you one thing. The monthly view on the calendar is pretty cool. And I do think probably when this comes up, I'll go back to October, since that was a month that we were back and forth to UNCC pretty good. But I like a lot of the information. I like it when it's fast. And I hit the back arrow and it draws really quick. I'm sorry that I decided to go. We could probably do November with thanks. Well, we didn't go down there for Thanksgiving. All right, let's hit it one more time, even though it's taking a minute to draw it. But I like the monthly summary because it tells you how many drives just for that month, how many miles for that month, the watt hours per mile. I will say, when you look at watt hours per mile in the wintertime, when you've got an extra winter averaged in over all of the numbers, that's gonna make it look less efficient, right? When you look at it in the middle of the summer and you've got an extra summer averaged in with the numbers, more warm days, and that'll should improve the efficiency a little bit. But I like these daily summary. Let's see. Yeah, this is a Whole Foods day. You can see it puts up the symbols of where I was. When you hover over it, it tells you what it was too. Just trying to see what day fall break was, because we ought to see. Well, there was a super here, UNC Charlotte, and we did a supercharger in Thomasville that day. I mean, you could just really quickly see, like, at a very visual level, what you were doing on what day and what you were doing in that month. And it's a really nice little summary. And it also has, all of these things in TeslaFi are going to show you the map. It's hard to get the map so it shows just what you want to see without, in or out, without being too much. And I do think now, you hit escape to get out of that. I do think now that I wanted to show the lifetime map for Ruby's driving, and I forgot to bring that up, so we'll bring it up now. The one thing that surprised me is I forgot that Don and Johnny took Ruby to Johnson City, Tennessee for a robotics competition. I don't remember why probably for free supercharging is why they drove Ruby versus why they would have driven Joules. I think the last time they went robotics, they did go ahead and take Joules, but I saw that Johnson City, Tennessee was up here. Obviously, the back and forth to Charlotte is getting a lot darker because we've made a lot of trips down to the school, and yeah. But this is a lifetime map, and Ruby's been Tennessee, South Carolina, Virginia, and North Carolina, and that's the only place. Every time Don's gone down to Florida or out to Texas, was with Kyle, or over when he went to Jack's funeral. Um, was in Joules those other times, so Joules has more spread out map than Ruby. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to show? Oh, we were going to talk about my software updates. I counted a few minutes ago, and Ruby had 13 updates in 2024, and she had one every month of the year, and I was really surprised. I know last year, I swear we went 3 months and we didn't have a software update. We were all just, but I'll bring, zoom in over here so that you can see it. That's the 13 that we had this year. And TeslaFi is saying it was an average of 20 days between updates and an average 4 days from version discovery on any car in the TeslaFi fleet until Ruby installed it. So really, I don't think Ruby can be complaining about her software updates for 2024. I think that was pretty darn good. But I guess on a couple of those times, maybe having to wait the 4 days was a little painful, but yeah, we know Tesla has a great track record for giving us free goodies and continuing to improve our cars. And lifetime, Ruby's had 137 software updates. I think we had one update out of the 137 that we needed. We had to go get a FSD computer update or something, but really it's been, all things considered, it's been super smooth in my opinion. I think Don would agree with me. So, I didn't look at this one before. Let's look at this one. It says statistics. Okay, that's fleet statistics. Okay. So what's it say for Model X? Active logging users in the Tesla 5 fleet is 1,352. So as you can see, there's a lot. There's over 9,000 threes, over 6,000 Ys, 2,600 S, 1,300 X, and 223 Cybertrucks. Way cool. Okay, there was one more thing I wanted to show. Something I discovered the other day. We're going to go back to the calendar, and we're going to just click on. Here's where I wish we were still in. We were still in October. I guess I can go back. Can I just go just to October for the month? I can. So that's good because I want to get a day. This is on the fly. I haven't looked at this data. And I want to get a day that we were on the road, on the interstate. Dawn would be driving. And I want to go into one of the drive records. So this was from, that's at the end of the day. I want the beginning of the day. So we left home and we stopped by our friend Janet's house that day. That's right. So maybe leaving UNC Charlotte pickup spot to the Tesla supercharger in Thomasville. Let's look at this one. If we pull up the drive record, and that is going to be that's idle detail, charge detail, parking. So this is the drive details. If we go in and we look at the drive details, if you're trying to fight a speeding ticket, TeslaFi now has a ton of data on how fast you were going. And like I said, I had not looked at this in advance. So the speed is the green line. And so we were at 77 mile an hour right there. We were at 75, just cruising along on the interstate. Ooh, 80. And 73. And this must have been leaving the UNCC pickup spot. And this was getting off the interstate and going into the supercharger. So, and it includes the time. This was at 6:38 p.m. This was at 6:14 p.m. This was at 5:53 p.m. So if some cop pulled you over and tried to say that you were speeding at XYZ time and he clocked you doing such and such, well, I just got news for you that you can come in here and see whether he was anywhere near close to accurate or not. If you were, you were, and if you weren't, you can prove you weren't. So I didn't know either. This is improved because this TeslaFi developer, he's always adding new stuff. It's either improved or I just realized that it was all there and how great it was. So anyway, well, that's all for Ruby's numbers. Let me go get my act together on Joules' numbers and come back and we can do Joules. Should be pretty much showing the same information for both cars. Joules got to go to South Park today. 32 minutes at South Park. We were in and out because we didn't have a lot of time. So go up here and start with the drive summary. Joules is at 33,044 miles. And the top 10 destinations here, let's go ahead and put in 2024, January to 2024, 12/31. If I can type, getting tired of typing dates. I told Don y'all were going to see his tires were low and he needed to go put air in his tires again. They're not super low, but they could use a little air. So Don's top destinations in Joules: home, South Park, the environmental park, because where do we take Joules every day? We take Joules to exercise. Walmart, Fuquay, Guardian Angel, the UPS store, which is the same as Harris Teeter because Don's usually down on the UPS end of the parking lot. I don't know what this red box one is. That's probably the Harris Teeter, and so we can add up this parking lot's really a bigger weight. The Greenway, Home Depot, and Tesla. It's about what you would expect, right? Yeah, so Don takes me to Guardian Angel quite often. It's not his number one location, but it is in the top 5. Longest drives are probably some of them are going to be UNC Charlotte. Yeah, this is Salisbury. I'm sure this one called Red Box because Harris Teeter used to have a Red Box, is the Harris Teeter. But home down near the school back to home. Same thing with Thomasville. Those are school days. We just went to the glass station on 12/20, December the 20th, over in Farmville. The Shield Museum, that is in Gastonia, North Carolina. That would be a robotics event. Same with this New Hope Road, Gastonia. This is robotics related. And we had this one long drive to get the second Creality printer, and that's this entry and this entry up here. And then also this was a Facebook marketplace run back in May for the gargoyle sitting in the front yard. So, but most of them are either robot related or school related or the glass station. So the lowest recorded range ever for Joules is 5.92 miles. That was either coming or going from the robotics event in Gastonia in 2023. Most battery used in a drive was 80%, and this was when must have been when Don was traveling to Cape Girardeau for Jack's funeral back in 2020. Longest time driving 2 hours and 52 minutes, and that happened to be the same drive. It's the exact same drive. So Don was by himself, and he did not have a lot of time to get there. Like literally, he was getting there. He couldn't afford to lose 2 hours even. So I understand why he was really pushing it on the way out. He didn't have to push it on the way back. And the highest speed, 116 mile per hour. And again, this was on the track at NC Car. This was not on a surface street. This was going around a racetrack designed for speed, and especially in the straightaway. This is about what you could get up to before you had to brake to make the curve. So I don't know if Don, obviously on this particular one, if Don was driving or Kyle did also have. He had Ruby on the track and he had Joules on the track, as well as Don and I have had both. I don't know that I drove Joules, but I drove Ruby. Anyway, it's possible it's when Kyle was on the straightaway. He always took it a little easier in our cars. He didn't drift them around the corner, but you could still, go fast on the straightaway. Lowest recorded temperature is 23. And the highest was 105, and that's 2022 and 2023 respectively. Highest elevation is the same spot on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It says Pink Beds overlook Pisgah Forest. And then the lowest recorded elevation, Joules has been to Florida, and coming back from TeslaCon, they went through, I think coming back, St. Augustine's supercharger, and that was at -3 feet. So pretty cool. Temperature efficiency, I believe the data for Joules is very similar for Ruby. When it's warm out, you're going to have better efficiency than when it's cold out. And that's just all this shows. Plus, we also have a little bit more driving miles when it's warmer out than when it's colder out. And that makes sense, right? Because colder would generally be at night. And besides, why would you want to be out when it's cold? And speed efficiency. So when Joules is over 70 mile an hour, really even anything over, I don't know, Dawn's efficiency is not as good as Ruby. Joules' efficiency is not as good as Ruby's. But anyway, when Joules is going over 65 mile an hour, the efficiency is really lower. The only time Joules has got really great efficiency is in the 25 mile an hour to, let's just say, 50, maybe 55. But at over 55, it kind of really tapers off. And of course, this down here, there's really not enough miles recorded to weigh that out or really get good data there. But slower is better efficiency pretty much across the board with the electric vehicle. Odometer graph. So like I said, Joules is up to 33,044 miles now. And the graph is looking pretty straight there, straight up. I thought this was cute because I didn't know Don had done this. Mr. Don and Johnny's Florida trip and TeslaCon 2022. So you can see just a little bit more of an up and over there, a little stair step due to the 2 road trips that had, a substantial amount of miles. And this might have been the one to Cape Girardeau down here, this stair step down here, if I had to guess. Yeah, the car put on over 1,000 miles in that brief little blip there. That must have been right after Dawn got Joules. Tire pressure graph. I got confused. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But this is the temperature relative to the tire pressure. So obviously when it's colder out, the same amount of air pressure in the tire it'll read lower than when the tires are warmer, it's warmer out. I guess that's all that's trying to show. I don't see any. Well, this could have been one of the tires being right rear 25.3. So that yellow blip there must have been that day I drove home and the tire started to go down a couple miles from the house. And then went lower in the garage after I parked it. But yeah, just what we all want to do, go back and relive the days we had seriously low tire pressure. This is the lifetime map for Joules. And as I said before, Joules has been to more states. He's been to Florida and Tennessee and out here to Cape Girardeau. And like I said, down to Florida multiple times. So just a few more states there, up into Virginia, just to say we could that one time when we were up here, get that in. So yeah, it didn't really increase a whole lot for this past year, though. A lot of difference from the prior years. And the charge summary we'll put in for last year. And I came in and there was this address and I'm like, oh, that's the Airbnb from when Michelle and Adam visited and were driving around in Joules. So it showed one charge over there since the Airbnb folks made it available to them and they were also Tesla owners. Supercharging, 7 charges at 5 different locations, and Salisbury and Thomasville are UNCC trips. Morrisville is when we went up to RDU and charged at the V4 pedestal. Gastonia was the robot event, and Chapel Hill was on the way back from, I think that was the day we went to pick up that 3D printer, and coming back in on I-40, we wanted to check out a supercharger we hadn't been to before. We also have, and I need to go name this. We have the Iona charge at the event on a couple of weeks ago, right, or a week or so ago. So yeah, I should come in here, and while I'm thinking about it, I'll come back and put in a nice image for them. You can add an image, but at least now we've got a it's got says Iona now here. You can see that I named it. And like I said, I can come and put a pretty picture in as well. And this is just kind of showing the heat map for where the car's charged. I believe this is a lifetime. So yeah. The battery report, and I went through all of these screens one time before starting to talk to you guys about it, so I hopefully could be I practiced one time. And the what I came out with that was really interesting is that Joules can currently get 256 miles projected, and that's the same as Ruby. They both started out at a little over 290, and they're both down in the 250 range area. And I would say Joules is my battery range is the blue, is, that graph is, there's nothing alarming on that graph. This is basically the entire year of 2024, and it's only lost just a few miles. And Teslafy is telling us that there are 9 vehicles with charges at your current odometer reading. 7 vehicles have a higher range, 2 vehicles have a lower range. Your range is better than 22% of similar users. So I really would rather be your range is better than 90% of other users, but yeah, it's about what we expected or knew that the range was. Um Nothing concerning there. So the calendar for Joules for the year, we don't want 2025, we want 2024. And there's been a few months where we've had more miles than not, but most of the months is not super high. A couple times we've taken Joules down to UNC Charlotte versus taking Ruby. So in 2024, Joules had 927 drives for about 9,800 miles. 403 watt hours per mile is the average. I'm like looking at this going, are these Ruby's numbers or Joules' numbers? Because I think that they're not that far off. Says charging supercharges, number of supercharges with 36. And talking about at home costs. And again, Don's going to cover all the charging stuff. So if he needs backup from this or something, obviously he'll have that, but he's going to cover the charging stuff in his numbers. I think I covered what I wanted to cover there. Fleet software updates. I think Joules had the same number or possibly one more update this year. And the thing that I noticed, 79 updates lifetime. But of course, we've had Joules since 2020, and we've had Ruby since 2017. And I do think back in the beginning, the updates came a little more often. But he has the same, an average of 20 days between updates, average of 4 days from discovery to install. It's now we're 25 days in waiting. We sure would like to see, version 13 roll out to either Ruby or Joules. I guess some of the version 3, or excuse me, hardware 3 S and X's in the fleet were getting it, but it was the refreshed X maybe. Ruby doesn't have it yet, but sure would like to have it. Let me just double check if there was anything else I wanted to talk about. And Oh yeah, this would be different for Joules that from Ruby. The supercharger invoice list, we can see what we paid for supercharging um, in Joules, since Joules doesn't have lifetime supercharging. And I'm looking, so we had one, two, three, four, five, six. We had 7 supercharger visits in 2024 where we paid something. Um, so $5.07, 468, 1911. This was the robotics event. 273, 853, 766, and 719. So, when Don's in Joules, he's not going to be plugged in any longer than he absolutely has to be. Whereas in Ruby, we don't sit there and try to soak up free supercharging, but 5 or 10 minutes of just kind of not being super fast, yeah, that could certainly happen. But um, we can see all of that detail in here, and I know you can see it in the Tesla app too. But I'm kind of like to see it on the computer, where if I really need to see it, I can zoom in and I can see those areas where I want to see more detail. So, well, hopefully I covered everything. I think I did, and that you guys got some interesting details and updates on our cars.